Hi there everybody, welcome. Today we're talking about the last data type in our series, functions. Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for joining us today. So far we've been through all of the other fundamental data types within Lua, and if you haven't seen those already, check out the channel and have a look at some of the other videos to do with numbers, strings and the like. But for today we're going to be looking at functions. So we're not going to be looking at why you would use functions, and on that note, while I've got you, it's worthwhile if you want to look at a way in which to start learning about how to program with programming concepts in Lua, then stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be doing a whole series of videos as to how to get going with Lua from scratch, so stay tuned for that. But for the moment, what we're going to do is explore Lua's data type, functions. So there's many ways to define functions in Lua, and the main reason for that is because Lua treats functions as a first-class data type. Now that's really awesome as far as a language goes. When a language treats functions as first-class citizens, you know that you're onto something great, because the way in which languages that don't treat them as first-class citizens hand those functions around can somewhat be hacky in terms of creating, for instance, function pointers in C and the like. And that has become better in more modern iterations of, for instance, C++. But really, treating a function as a first-class citizen means that you can assign a function to a variable, be it an L value or an R value, and that's a real step forward. So let's have a look at the way in which we declare a function in our LuaScript editor. So in LuaScript, I'll fire up script assist, and I can start typing for function, and of course you can see that we've already got a code snippet in there for function. So if I select this code snippet, that's actually going to enter in the text for the construct that we need for function, and it just highlights the area where I can insert a name. It even tells me to do that. So I'm just going to have, say, test. So I've got a local function called test. I'm not going to dwell on the local keyword too much, because local is of course a scope modifier, and we'll look at that in another video. But straight away we've got the function keyword, and that says that the following construct is a function type. It has an identifier called test, so therefore we can refer to it, we can invoke it using the test name. And we have some parentheses without parameters. So those parameters will go into yet another video, but for the moment let's just assume that there are none. And at the end of our construct we have the end keyword. Now for those of you who haven't looked at Lua constructs yet, end is a common keyword at the end of a particular construct of statements to define that you've come to the end of that particular block. So some languages use braces, and some languages use white space, for instance, Python. But in Lua we use the end keyword, and that just says that anything between the declaration of local function and the end statement is inside this function. So we've now got our test function. Of course, further down I can then call test, and script assist knows that there is a variable of test, and it knows that it's a function defined on line 1, so that's great. Okay, I can go ahead and invoke that particular function. So that's how to declare a local function, but how about the way in which to hand around functions as a L value and R value? Well, the way in which we tend to do that is using what's called an anonymous function. So by saying we have an anonymous function, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get rid of the test identifier there. I'm going to get rid of the invocation as well, and I'm going to remove the, although you don't necessarily need to, but I'm going to remove the local specifier as well, because now we just have function, parenthesis, no parameters in this case, but the end keyword as well at the end, which is the bare minimum of what you need for a function. So it has no identifier, it's a function in space, it's a valid function as far as Lua is concerned, and we can put some behaviour in that as well, but it's kind of useless at the moment. It's anonymous, we can't reference it, so on and so forth. So let's look at how we would go about referencing that. So I'm actually going to declare a new local variable called local f, and I'm just going to assign that function within it. So now we have a variable called f, of which in a moment I'll show you that LuaScript has identified that as having a function type as well, and it has this anonymous function within it. So now we can reference it. We can actually hand that variable from one variable to the other, maybe pass it into a parameter, which we'll have a look at shortly as well. But in essence, it now has an identifier. We don't necessarily just need to declare these functions as having specific names that are tied to them on a particular scope. So, of course, that works in terms of assigning a variable into a table structure as well. So you could have a table that has a identifier on it, maybe person, and the function is call, for instance, and you'd assign an anonymous function into that as well, and that will work in terms of the table too. So that's really good. Now let's look at how we can utilize that syntax to start handing these functions around. So if I was to then create a new local function, local variable for, I don't know, callback, and assign that to a function, some function with no parameters, and we'll call the end at that. And then I'll create a new variable as well for function test equals another function end. So actually what I want to do within that test function is call a callback. So when it's invoked, so let's invoke it to start with. We'll call test, of course no parameters, but we do want to know when test is complete. So I'll create a new parameter in the function for test. And that parameter will be just simply CB. It can be whatever you want it to be, of course, because it's just another identifier. But at that point, LuaScript also knows that we don't have anything particularly assigned to that type of CB because we've not actually invoked it yet. So let's go ahead and invoke it. So I'll call that with callback. Now, I'm not going to use the parenthesis to invoke that function because I'm not interested in its return type. I'm just saying take this particular variable and pass that as your parameter. Now, of course, within test, I can then call callback because then that is a function that's available to me. So at the end of our test, and as well, we could probably also have some other behavior up here, for instance, some stuff here, and then at the end of it you then call that particular function that's been passed in as a callback, so then we know that that particular behaviour has occurred. Maybe you can do some cleanup code, so on and so forth, I don't know, whatever you want to do, but in essence that's how you're able to hand those functions through as R values and L values. Now interestingly enough, you can also, instead of just having to assign callback to some local variable callback, you can just directly call function and end directly into the parameters as well. So that's where the power really starts to come in. You can take a function that has no name and you can pass it in as some kind of R value where it has no L value reference. And again, I've mentioned L value and R value quite a lot today. We're going to go into that in terms of a new video as well that's going to come soon. For the moment though, there's nothing left to say. A little bit of news in terms of our new blog as well. So there's more information coming out of LuaScript. If you go to luascript.dev/blog, you'll be able to find all of our new updates that are available on our webpage as well. LuaScript is coming very, very soon for a public beta. So get on to luascript.dev and subscribe to news on that. Subscribe to the channel as well. And as always, if you're into financial market trading and you want to put your new Lua skills to good use, code up our algo, turn your trading plan into an algorithm, and head over to script.trading for more information on that. For the moment, that's it from me. Thank you very much for your time. I've enjoyed having you with us. Don't forget to subscribe, and I shall see you soon.